pose for the forward extension is an intensive and an advanced extension. You understand? That's why it is done as a concluding forward extension. That's why I asked them, all of them, to do so that they bring the evenness on the spine after their extension, though they were doing only one asana each, since we have no time for everyone to perform each asana. So they show different asanas, but then I said come to Paschimottanasana so that they keep symmetrical extension on both the sides, so their spine is also saved from wrong extension on one side. You understand? So that's how one has to do Paschimottanasana in the beginning as well as a concluding forward extension. Now come up. And only one person for Bharadwajasana on the platform. Rest of you are down. After the forward extension, we come to the lateral extension of the spine. As in standing poses you saw in standing poses, here, let them just get into pose. In standing poses, because you have to listen to this, the posture, they are there already showing. In standing poses, you saw Tadasana, Vrikshasana, Samasthiti, Tadasana, Vrikshasana, Trikonasana, Parsvakonasana, etc. Then Virabhadrasana, when they turn their spine to one side, that means the lateral turning of the spine already began there. In Parivrutta Trikonasana, Parivrutta Parsvakonasana, it was intensified. That is, in standing also you went in that manner, that progressively, so that first you extend the side first, then you turn. And in that process, here also first you saw forward extension, and then you come to the lateral twisting of the spine. That means anatomically and anatomical movement are every time thought of when you are introduced to the new posture. It's not just something you will pick up. No teacher will say that now today I am interested to take Bharadwajasana, so let me do that. He will take in progressive manner so that your spine moves accordingly. And that's how this is the pose which is introduced, Bharadwajasana, which belongs to the lateral extension, when you sit first in that asana. Now they bend their knees, because already now the knee has learned to bend in Priyanka Mukha Paschimottanasana, Janu Shishasana, etc. and Gomukhasana. So here you find the legs in Virasana position. Abhay is doing the first one, Devaki is doing Bharadwajasana 2, where she puts one leg in Padmasana, and then both the legs are in one side like Virasana state, so on one side so it is Bharadwajasana. So after forward extension, we come to the lateral extensions of the spine. Lateral means your spine, as it is in this position, now it turns to the side. You understand? So their spine first it was towards you in the Dandasana, and it has begun to turn to the right side this way. To get the freedom of the spine for rotation, now ask two persons to come on the platform, please just stand behind them and tell them, because sometimes their memory is so short regarding the asanas, they may forget. So you saw Parivrutta Trikonasana and Parivrutta Parsvakonasana. That means already the foundation has laid there. In Parivrutta Trikonasana, what Vijay is doing, what Vijay is going to do, and here Rajakmi in Parivrutta Parsvakonasana. So you find the rotation. Now Bharadwajasana 1 and 2. Here that one Abhay which is doing Bharadwajasana 1 is a basic lateral rotational asana. It's a simple asana in which the spine extends and turns to the side without creating any abdominal compression. Whereas here you find the abdominal compression, Vijay and Rajlakshmi doing. Now if they can. I just compared that. You can do on the other side. A pregnant woman can manage with what Abhay did, because there is no compression of the abdomen. Here, since foot is up, one has to see whether that foot is kept in such a state that abdomen is not compressed. So pregnant woman can do, but those two cannot be done. Trikonasana, Parivrutta Trikonasana and Parivrutta Parsvakonasana, since there is a compression. So those who get backache due to the weakness in the muscles or slip disc will find a great relief when you look at these four poses. The arm and shoulder work, here arm work in Devaki and Abhay, you see, they prevent and cure the arthritis, rheumatism and those areas. Actually the final pose is like this. We will show the final pose, Abhay. And you people can come in Tadasana and stand straight. And there's a hand work. Can you see? Which is not introduced to the beginners first, but hold the foot there, and finally to hold the arm, upper arm. So first you hold the upper arm in the Bharadwajasana 1, and in Bharadwajasana 2 you hold the foot with your hand. That's a progressive method. You understand? Because normally you don't think what the position is. The leg work is different, arm and leg work is different. Then you hold the arm, here you hold the foot. So women especially who get sort of pain and cramps in the back, neck, shoulders after domestic work, kitchen work, and men after a sedentary job or traveling will be benefited in these postures. The lateral extensions, which are called as turning and twisting movements, are essential for everyone, since the muscle fibers of the spine and the back begin to become hard and dry due to the age. As the aging process begins, the stiffness you will certainly find, and that's why that becomes a hard job. That's why this practice of at least this simple twisting is very essential. As I said, if somebody thinks that after 1 year they just want to give up coming to the classes, they can stop coming to the institute, but at least whatever has been taught, if they continue with that, they will be certainly benefited. Understood? Yes. Now, the standing asanas, the lateral extensions, that is twisting which you saw, prepare the standing poses, and the twisting which you saw just now, they prepare musculoskeletal structure of the body. To learn the inversions, that means to stand topsy-turvy, such as Shirshasana and Sarvangasana. Whereas the standing and sitting forward bend extension, that means you did certain forward, you saw certain forward extensions in standing, you saw certain forward extensions in sitting also. They prepare one physically and mentally, so that one can avoid the adverse effects such as high blood pressure, headache, neck pain, tension in the eyes, vomiting sensation, heaviness in the head, a sudden rush of the blood towards the head, and the psychological fear caused by faulty performance. That means already people just say, because they comment that Shirshasana should not be done, or in this institute everyone is made to do Shirshasana. There are many people who don't take the admission in this institute saying that they will be made to stand on their head. That is the first fear. Because somebody goes and says that we are all doing Shirshasana. And somebody says, yes, we are forced to do Shirshasana. Because we are made, we can't just skip from that Shirshasana. And this message is spread outside in such a manner that they say that when you go to this Iyengar's classes, they are made to stand on the head. Mind yourself, we are not making you to stand on the head just straight away. How much preparation is done before that? Remember, because these answers are not ready for you, especially advanced students also. When they have done, they think it's so simple that everybody stands on the head and there is no problem. Any advanced students here, those who come, you ask them, they say, but years we are standing, it hasn't harmed us, and okay. But when you are questioned this way, you don't know where to answer, how to answer. But remember that you are not made to stand on your head straight away unless you are prepared in that level. That's why standing adjust your muscles, the skeletal body, etc. Your metabolism, like which may cause blood pressure, etc. is adjusted with your forward bend, etc. The psychological fear is taken out, as I said, inverted posture where head is down, buttock is up, so that you correct your position, you realize in which position you are going to be, and that's how Shirshasana is taken. So now we proceed with inversions. These two people will come on the platform. It's called inversions because you stand in an inverted position. When the head is down and legs are up, it's called inverted position of the body. And in Shirshasana, Sarvangasana, some of the poses like Adho Mukha Vrikshasana, Pincha Mayurasana, your head is down and legs are up, and that's why they are called inverted postures. Because often people do not understand if we just refer to inversions. They say, what do you mean by inversions? Inversions are these poses where your head is down and legs are up. You understand? So these are the poses which come under that category. Now, for example, actually one is not taught to do Shirshasana unless one does some in Sarvangasana. So even in the program, you are taught first to do Halasana, then Sarvangasana, and later you are taken to Shirshasana in classes. That's how it is taught. No, they haven't taken you to Shirshasana also straight away. Apart from standing forward bed extension. Now, above will first just show Halasana. Though you do halfway Halasana there upstairs, putting your legs either on the threshold or on the chair. So first one is taught to do half Halasana, and then later full Halasana with the legs are taken down. Because in half Halasana, you find the spine extension. First you are made, keep the feet a bit up, away, without support of course he's doing, and lift the spine upward. When he lifts, that means you are first learning to lift the organic body and skeletal body in such a manner that you don't tense your neck, shoulder, etc. And then you are being asked to bring the feet down in Halasana. And this way it is taken for 3-4 months. It's not, or even sometimes 6 months. It's not that easily it is taken, the feet are just taken down. Then, as far as Shirshasana is concerned, go to Halasana. You be in Halasana, you can stay there. As far as Shirshasana is concerned, you are being taught first how to put your arms, fingers, shoulders, head, etc. So Rajlakshmi shows there, she interlocks her fingers, she keeps her crown of the head down, she raises her knees up, she walks it, raises the spine up, and you are being taught just to remain in that position, just to get the feeling of Shirshasana. Your legs are down, so no question of losing the balance, no question of putting the wrong load or extra load on your neck. Your neck is free from the tension, shoulders are free from the tension, but yet you are just mentally getting yourself prepared, and physically you are toning, because the moment your head goes down, often you don't know where your shoulder is, your armpits are, your chest, if we say just open the chest, you don't know where to open the chest. Because you are in that position that you have to search where your shoulders are, where your neck is, your dorsal is, and your ribs are, etc. So this is how you have to get used to not only to the position but feel yourself. When you are in this position, where your ribs are, where your sternum bone is, where your spine is, where your legs are, how the arms are, where the forearms are, where the upper arms are kept. So you get introduce yourself to your own body in that inverted position. Then, after training you in this position, one goes to Shirshasana, and that too against the wall as a beginner. You keep your hands there near the wall, and then you put the legs upward and go to the position. Now, as far as Sarvangasana is concerned, there you see, Abhay, he comes to Sarvangasana. You learn Halasana, then you are in Sarvangasana. In Sarvangasana, you learn certain variations like in Ekapada Sarvangasana, half, then down. Then Sarvangasana, Parshva Ekapada Sarvangasana, where you turn the foot, you go halfway down, you go completely down. See the sideways leg movement, front leg movement, which is connected to the next asanas, next group of asanas. Then come up, Sarvangasana, go to Halasana. Then you do Karnavirasana with bent knees. Then again you take your palms on your back, you go to Supta Konasana, you spread your legs apart, which compared with this to Upavishta Konasana, where you learn to spread your legs apart, Prasarita Padottanasana. Then you come to Parshvanasana, you join your feet. Then you walk to one side, both the legs, maintaining the balance of the trunk, spine. You don't over-rotate there. You have to see that your torso is kept in straight position and the body does not get tilted, and that's how these are the variations you learn. Now come to Sarvangasana and stay there. And Rajlakshmi, if you are tired, you sit in Virasana and bend forward. So if you get fatigue, that is the way you bend. Now let me speak about this, what we are seeing now. Actually, it would be better if you read these significant effects of these asanas in the book Light and Yoga to know the importance. Because you don't try to find out what has been mentioned, and that's why the questions remain in your mind. These asanas, Shirshasana, Sarvangasana, Halasana, variations, etc., basically work on respiratory, circulatory, nervous, and glandular system, and change the very personality and mental attitude of a person for the better, so that his mind gravitates towards becoming sattvic. The purity of the mind the feeling actually that we should be pure, even that consciousness, if arises inside, that let us be pure, that's enough. That's a seed to become further, to develop our sattvic quality. Because first, that feeling inside has to come that we should improve. If that doesn't come, you can't be a sattvic person. So even if that seed is there, so inside, that you have to improve yourself and purify yourself, that is enough, and that seed is sown in these postures. These asanas help one to strengthen the willpower. That's why for students it's very helpful to increase their or strengthen their willpower, improve the memory, increase the intellectual capacity, and bring the emotional stability, because there will be a proper, every time the proper any hormonal imbalances will be corrected with this. That's why often people who have hormonal imbalance, they are afraid to do the inversions, Shirshasana, Sarvangasana, etc. But if they do these postures, that's why I said it works on the glandular system, because you can balance whole of your hormonal system. Though it takes time, there is a method of going into procedure. If somebody has a thyroid problem, it is taught in such a manner that the thyroid tension is taken off. If somebody has a problem with the pituitary glands, then how to stimulate that pituitary gland in Shirshasana, there is a method. These are the postures, you are just looking at the postures. When it has to be treated to the patient with these asanas, when it is treated, there is a methodical approach, and with that methodical approach, one improves. So this brings the emotional stability and helps to build up the character and improve the very behavior pattern. That's how a discipline is introduced into the system through these postures. Those who suffer with cold, cough, asthma, tonsillitis, bronchitis, halitosis, palpitation, insomnia, nervous breakdown, fear complex, inferiority complex, laziness, lethargy, anemia, poor blood circulation, constipation, low pulsation, lack of concentration, general weakness, low vitality, hormonal imbalance, menstrual disorders, impotency, so on, will be benefited, and these asanas are boon for those people who suffer with this kind of problems. They are bit internally connected. The problems I spoke, that some of the problems are such, one causes the other to suffer inside, and as that makes to suffer, you know that you just give the list of the problems. You say you are having low vitality, or you say you are having anxiety, you say you are anemic and sort of thing. It's all connected. And then you ask, I am anemic, give me some other asana. And then you say, no, I have got low vitality, what am I to do? Somebody comes and says, oh, I have got bronchitis, give me some. If I have got all these three, I have to say, do inversion, do headstand, shoulder stand, or even halasana, then say Samanasana, all these. Then you say, how it can be the same for everyone? Because we are working with the respiratory organs, glandular system, the circulatory system, in all these postures, and obviously they help those people who suffer with such diseases which are connected with those systems. You understand? So that's how they improve one. The variations you saw in Sarvangasana, which Abhay did, he can show once again if he wants to go just about, then one after the other. Those variations which you see help to improve the sense of balance in Shirshasana. That means he does this, but that will give because the movement of the leg, movement of the back, makes your spine to tolerate those movements, how to take those movements. And that's why in Shirshasana you find the balance coming in a better way. So as one becomes proficient in Sarvangasana, one can improve the performance in Shirshasana. Therefore, one should learn Sarvangasana properly. Halasana, then Sarvangasana, then variation, and then Shirshasana. The variations of Sarvangasana and Halasana, what you are seeing now, eliminates toxins and waste matter, rejuvenates the abdominal organs, release the gas from stomach and intestine, improve the circulation in the waist region, back and abdomen. You find the movement, turning, twisting, whatever he is doing there. Help to contract the abdominal organs, cleanse the vaginal and uterine area, which he spreaded his legs, you saw in that Supta Konasana. It opens, and that's why vaginal area, uterine areas are cleansed. That's why those who suffer with the infection bladder infection, vaginal infection, etc., they find a great relief in these poses. They exercise colon as he is turning there. They protect the prostate glands from enlargement and improve the function of excretory system. And that's how you find the benefit. And those poses which are simple, which one can learn in 1 month, 1 year's period, Guruji has given that program so that at least minimum you learn there. Now you know, yes, you know how people are keen to reduce the fat around the waist. Because that's the first question they ask when they come to the class, whether they can reduce their fat, whether they can tone their abdominal organs. And they ask for the abdominal exercises. That's what. First, when they enter in, they ask first question to Pandu, whether you teach us some abdominal exercises because the abdomen is sagging down, fat is increasing, so what to do? However, it is unscientific to begin the abdominal exercises without having a preparation. And those preparations are done in standing poses and also the inversions. Just know what you saw. Because I have linked the asanas to show you in demonstration classes in such a manner. The inversions, what you saw like Shirshasana, Sarvangasana and variations, they protect one without causing any harm to abdominal organs when one proceeds to learn abdominal exercises. Because suppose if you want to do abdominal exercises and already the prostate glands are enlarged, that's not going to help you. So first you have to see that how that problem with the prostate glands are dealt, and then you can think of the abdominal reduction by doing abdominal exercises. So those who do merely the abdominal exercises and avoid inversions are likely to suffer with hiatus hernia, umbilical hernia, inguinal hernia, hydrocele, leukorrhea, that is white discharge, menstrual disorders, and enlargement of prostate, and so on. That means almost these abdominal pelvic organ problem are reproductive organs, problems with reproductive organs. These problems, they are so, these are so sensitive areas. If something goes wrong there, then it's a botheration for whole of the life. And you can't just take the risk there. And in order to avoid that risk, you have to first learn some of the inversions, so you are already protecting yourself organically, and then you can proceed for the abdominal exercises. So let us see now these abdominal exercises which are introduced to the beginners here. So these 3 persons are there up on the platform, in which you will be seeing Urdhva Prasarita Padasana, Paripurna Navasana, and Supta Padamuttasana. Variations, 2 variations in Supta Padamuttasana, 1 and 2. These are the postures. They will be also in Supta position. Rajlakshmi is sitting in Dandasana, and here these 2 people, ladies, they are lying down on their back. Now first we take Urdhva Prasarita Padasana and Paripurna Navasana. So Rajlakshmi and Devaki, they go to the pose. Megha is still waiting there. You see, this is Paripurna Navasana, and this is Urdhva Prasarita Padasana, where the legs are lifted to the 90 degrees. Now these 2 asanas, yes, you can be Rajlakshmi, you can repeat. Reduce, take these 2 asanas, reduce the fat around the waist and abdomen, strengthen the lumbar and sacral back, and tone the abdomen, and relieve one from the gastric trouble, bloating sensation, and flatulence. So digestive system and the abdominal region, which easily catches the fat around it, or stores the fat around it, and this poses helpful. For a beginner, the steps are not given, but straight away one is asked to raise the legs in 90 degrees, because one has to tone the thighs, the knees, so that the waist muscles can hold those legs up in that position. That's how the asana is taught. However, now Megha does pose, first raising the leg upward. When these asanas, once again Navasana, Rajlakshmi, they lead towards abdominal muscle contraction. You find a tremendous abdominal contraction when Rajlakshmi is doing that. And the back can pain in these poses. So it is counterbalanced with what Megha is doing Supta Paramuttasana. Therefore, you can now come down. And as you can just be in that asana. So they concentrate on this Supta Paramuttasana. After doing that Navasana and this pose, when you feel the abdominal contraction or the back pain, this is the one which will relieve you from the backache. There are two variations in it. One is just raising the leg upward and then take the leg to the side. When you take the leg to the side, you find this pose relieves one from sciatic pain, lumbago pain, and also they give a great relief to the pelvic region, that is lower abdominal region, aerating that area and protecting one from hernia, prostrate and menstrual problems. That means what I said, that if in case without doing the inversions, if you avoid the problem by doing these poses, the problems like concerned with menstruation or the hernia or prostate enlargement, then at least these are the poses which you have to do. So you counterbalance in case something goes wrong in that. And that's why Supta Paramuttasana 1 and 2 is introduced. And backache, which is very common, it could be lumbago, it could be sciatica, just weakness in the back muscles, it can be taken off by doing this Supta Paramuttasana pose in two variations which you saw. Yeah, now you can come up, please take down, then come up, please sit there. After these abdominal exercises, now let us see the backward extension of the spine. When you begin to do the arch back, next group. I'm sorry. Yeah, correct. It's backward extension. No, backward extension. Then are we now prone position. You see them lying down on their back. It goes on with Dhanurasana, Shalabhasana, if you go on the back, take the back. In this position, you are going to see Chaturanga Dandasana, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, Dhanurasana and Shalabhasana. As far as backward extension is concerned, Guruji has given only these four. Wait there, back. 4 poses. For a beginner, the back arch is introduced in a prone position because this is prone position, means lie down on stomach is a prone position. Such a prone position back arch works on the external muscles of the back. That means you are not directly touching the internal muscles or the spinal muscles straight away inside. It's only the external, and in that way they are the light back arches. First is Chaturanga Dandasana, which Abhay is doing. This is a pose, though it is not showing any backward extension. Apart from strengthening the arms and toning the kidneys, this Chaturanga Dandasana, what Abhay is doing, prepares the back muscles to support the spine. That is, he has to, in order to balance like that, stretch your knees, stretch your thighs, raise the chest upward with the arms, and he has to strengthen. To lift that, he has to strengthen his back muscles, which begin to rotate him. Now go flat, Abhay first, or you come forward, Abhay. Devki, let Devki for Abhay go back. Devki, you sit. And let Abhay face these people, come forward a bit. Devki, you change your place, wait for a while, and this way, legs this way. So they can't see you because you are hiding behind. Now when he is in this position, he is completely in a restful state. You understand? Now spinal muscles are not doing anything there. But when he takes the toes in, palms press down, and now lift up yourself, he has to move the spinal muscles. Do you see? Spinal muscles, in order to lift, they have to rotate inside. That means the strengthening process begins in this pose. Though it is not a back arch pose. That's why I have chosen there Chaturanga Dandasana. Because you may question that you are talking about prone back arches when there is no back arch. But the spine is getting ready for Shalabhasana, Urdhva Dhanurasana and Dhanurasana. You understand? And now go down, Abhay goes back and there it comes forward. Now you see Urdhva Mukha Svanasana, which removes the stiffness and pain in the back, and at the same time it develops the chest and increases the lungs capacity by doing. That means from Abhay's pose you find this movement. Now see Dhanurasana and Shalabhasana. They strengthen the back and exterior spinal muscles and the pressure on the abdomen, that is they are pressurizing that abdomen, they close the abdominal muscles and one is benefited as far as the digestion is concerned in Dhanurasana